Settlers arrived in Comanche County, Texas in 1854, and for most of its existence, few blacks have lived in this county about 70 miles from Abilene. Nicole Harleman was a toddler when her mother brought the family here in 1983. They did not know the violent history that explained why there were so few blacks in town. Nicole came home from elementary school one day and asked her mother, "What's a nigger?"
My grandmother had told me that years ago they had come through Comanche and had saw some signs that said, niggers don't let the sun go down on you. Don't be caught in Comanche County after dark or something like that. When I first got there, of course, I didn't know the history. After I, notified my family as to where I was at, then my grandmother, of course, told me that we couldn't live there because that was that was what, the history of Comanche.
The county's fearsome reputation of hostility towards blacks was spawned on a Monday night in July 1886. After lynching a black farmhand for murdering a white woman, a mob of white vigilantes on horseback ordered blacks to leave. The racial expulsion would prove the end of the county's black community.
I don't recall the date, but the bad day in Comanche County occurred when this young man was refused the right to go to town on a grocery shopping deal with all the men. So he had to stay home with Sally, the wife of Mr. Stevens. And the longer he thought about that, the madder he got, so he found him a gun, loaded it up, and when Miss Stevens was coming back with an apron full of eggs from the hen house, he shot and killed her. And I think they were the original intention was to take him to Comanche and put him in jail. But they decided, kind of a kangaroo court, that they'd just take him and do away with him because he was guilty of sin. And that's what they did. And immediately, news traveled fast, bad news especially, and they went to the depot, and everywhere that people of color were working in this county, and told them it would behoove them to get out before sundown on the next day or the next day. They gave them a deadline. And by George, it was a mass exodus. There weren't a lot of them here, but they all left. And until 1945, when I was a big kid, I had never even seen one. Now they drove through here, I'm sure, but I'd never seen a colored person until I went to help a man haul cattle to Fort Worth. And we stopped at the trading post out at where Neiman Marcus is now, which was a long ways from town. And I was surprised when he filled up water in the radiator when he spoke English, because I wanted him to say "Ungawa" like they do on Tarzan. That's the only picture I had of him.
The rural county had remained virtually all white for almost a century when Evelyn Young and her two daughters arrived. They found it a difficult place for blacks to live, as Evelyn learned when Nicole came home confused by the taunts of her elementary school classmates.
She would come in sometimes crying and wanted to know what a nigger was. She would tell me, well, the kids keep picking at me, they want to rub my hair, and they keep saying, we can't go, don't get close to her because she's a nigger. And I would just tell her, don't blame them. It's not them who's really talking, it's the adults. I would try to tell her, that kids, they don't know that they're doing wrong. They think it's a way of, playing with you because you're different and you're unique. And they're just going off of the ignorance of their parents.
There's no reason, really, no reason why they're not here today except the job conditions and whatever. They just can do better somewhere else, is my opinion. There's no law, and I don't know that anybody has, a great amount of prejudice because they go to town in Fort Worth and Abilene and they mingle with everybody else and people fix their food. we got kind of a bad rap because of this, I guess, but it's not really deserved because 99.9% of the people in this county could care less.
There were some good people there, and I guess, and I didn't have a family. I just didn't belong, and that was the first place that was really mine, and I just wasn't gonna let anybody run me away from it. I stayed because they didn't want me to.